5 nightmares no one tells you about remarrying. 70. When the years roll by and the hair turns silver, there is one thing that doesn't age the way the body does: the longing for love. At 70, the heart can still ache for companionship, for someone to share laughter over morning coffee, for a hand to hold when the nights grow long. After decades of raising children, building a home, working hard, and often saying goodbye to a lifelong partner, the silence can grow unbearable. And so, many step into remarriage with hope, the hope that this new chapter will finally bring peace and comfort. But what no one tells you is that love at this stage of life comes wrapped with shadows. It is not just two people coming together, it is families, finances, health, and history colliding in ways that can shake even the strongest spirit. The world applauds the courage to love again, yet behind closed doors, many find themselves living in struggles they never imagined. It feels unfair, doesn't it, to finally allow yourself joy again, only to discover that the very thing you reached for can turn into a burden heavier than loneliness itself. You want to believe remarriage at 70 will heal the ache, and sometimes it does. But sometimes it brings a different kind of ache, the kind that keeps you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you've made a mistake too big to undo. I want to talk to you about those hidden realities. Not to scare you, not to shame you, but to give voice to what so many seniors silently endure. Because truth is better than silence, and wisdom is better than regret. Today I'm going to share the 5 nightmares that often unfold after remarrying at 70. The unspoken challenges that test not only your marriage but your very sense of peace. And in hearing them, you may find comfort, courage, and clarity for your own journey. Number 1. Family tensions and resentment. When you remarry at 70, the decision may feel deeply personal. To you, it's about companionship, comfort, and finding a reason to smile again. But to your family, it can feel like an earthquake. The ground they've stood on, the family identity, the memory of the parent who passed, the idea of loyalty to the past, can suddenly feel shaken, even threatened. Adult children, no matter how old they are, often carry unspoken fears when a parent remarries. To them, the new spouse might look like a replacement, an intruder stepping into sacred territory. They may think, does this mean mom has forgotten dad, or is dad trying to erase mom's memory? That quiet resentment can quickly turn into distance. Suddenly, phone calls become shorter, holidays become colder, and you're left with the heartbreaking choice of dividing your love between your new partner and the family you once believed would always be your anchor. The pain deepens when grandchildren are pulled into the conflict. They often mirror their parents' feelings. Where there used to be warm visits and eager hugs, there may now be hesitation, confusion, or even silence. You might notice fewer invitations to birthdays, fewer pictures sent your way, fewer chances to hear their laughter fill your home. The loneliness you hope to escape by remarrying can take on a sharper edge when it comes dressed as rejection from your own blood. And then comes the financial layer. To you, sharing life with a new spouse feels natural. But to your children, it can feel like their inheritance, their sense of security, is under threat. The house they grew up in, the savings they assumed would pass down, the family treasures they now fear, it all belongs to someone else. They might not say it out loud, but the air thickens with suspicion. Every generous gesture towards your new spouse can be misread as betrayal. What should be a celebration of love can spiral into whispers, arguments, and legal conversations no family ever wants to have. This tension doesn't just bruise relationships, it bruises the heart. Imagine sitting at a Thanksgiving table, your new spouse on one side, your children on the other, and the silence between them heavy enough to choke the joy from the meal. You want harmony, but instead you feel torn. If you lean toward your children, your spouse feels unwanted. If you lean toward your spouse, your children feel replaced. No matter where you turn, someone you love walks away, hurt. The cruel truth is this: remarriage at 70 doesn't just bind two hearts. It rearranges entire family dynamics. And most families aren't prepared for that change. You may find yourself becoming the peacekeeper, the one trying to hold broken pieces together while secretly feeling that the love you longed for has cost you more than you imagined. Yet even in this storm, wisdom can grow. Sometimes the nightmare reveals where old wounds were never healed. Sometimes it exposes unspoken fears about loss, money, or loyalty. And though the pain can be sharp, it also carries a truth that cannot be ignored. Love is never simple, especially when it arrives in the later chapters of life. So, if you find yourself facing family resentment after remarrying, know this: you are not alone. Countless seniors across America are quietly navigating the same storm, torn between old bonds and new love. And while this nightmare is real, it also reminds you of something powerful. Every choice of love demands courage, and sometimes that courage means facing the very people you... Number 2. Financial entanglements and legal battles. When two people marry young, they grow their lives together. They build savings, purchase homes, and plan for the future side by side. But when you marry at 70, the picture is far more complicated. By this age, you've already lived a lifetime of financial decisions. You may have retirement savings, pensions, insurance policies, and even debts. And when remarriage happens, all of that suddenly merges into a tangled web that can turn love into a battlefield. What feels like a new beginning can quickly bring old fears to the surface. Many seniors enter remarriage believing love is all that matters. But then the paperwork begins. Joint bank accounts, beneficiary forms, wills, and property deeds. Every signature feels like it carries a hidden weight. One wrong decision and decades of careful planning can unravel in an instant. Your children may begin to worry, not because they don't want you to be happy, but because they fear what could happen to the family's legacy. The home you've lived in for 30 years may now be shared property. The savings you worked for might be redirected in ways no one expected. Even pensions or Social Security benefits can shift, reducing what you or your family would otherwise receive. What looks like a personal choice to you can feel like a financial earthquake to them. And then there are the horror stories. Seniors who lost their life savings because a new spouse had hidden debts. Widows and widowers who remarried only to discover medical bills piling up in their name after a partner fell ill. Families torn apart by court battles over estates, where lawyers end up taking more than the loved ones left behind. The promises of companionship turn into months or years of stress, draining the joy from what should have been a season of peace. Beyond the numbers, the emotional weight is just as heavy. Money at this age isn't simply money, it's security. It's the difference between living with dignity and living with fear. To suddenly feel uncertain about where you stand, or to see your children questioning your choices, can leave you restless and anxious. Nights that should be filled with gratitude and rest become nights of worry, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you've put your future in jeopardy. The nightmare is not always about losing money. It's about losing trust. Trust between parent and child. Trust between new husband and new wife. Trust in the belief that this chapter of life would be calmer, easier, gentle. Instead, it can feel like walking on a tightrope, afraid that one misstep will cost you everything. Yet wisdom whispers through the chaos. Money can expose what lies beneath: fear of abandonment, fear of betrayal, fear of being left with nothing. And while financial battles can shake you, they also remind you to guard your dignity fiercely. Because at 70, what you've earned is more than wealth. It is peace of mind. and that must be protected with as much care as your heart. Number 3. Health burdens that shift overnight. At 70, health is no longer something you can take for granted. Even if you feel strong, even if you live independently and walk with energy, the truth is that life can change in a single moment. A doctor's call, a fall in the bathroom, a sudden diagnosis. These things arrive without warning, and when you remarry at this stage of life, those changes affect not only you but also the one you've chosen to walk beside. Many seniors remarry, believing they'll have a partner to share dinners with, to travel with, to laugh with in the quiet of the evening. Yet for many, the marriage transforms faster than expected into a relationship centered on caretaking. Instead of dinners out, there are hospital visits. Instead of vacations, there are endless appointments, medications, and emergency room waits. The dream of romance turns into the reality of managing pillboxes, arranging hospice care, and learning how to lift a fragile body without hurting yourself. It isn't just the physical burden, it's the emotional weight. Watching someone you love decline takes a toll that few talk about. Guilt creeps in when you feel tired of the responsibility. Resentment rises when you realize that instead of companionship, you've stepped into exhaustion. And yet shame silences you, because how can you admit that love has become a burden? For many, the nightmare lies in how quickly roles shift. You remarry as equals, but before long one becomes the patient and the other becomes the nurse. Dreams of walking side by side fade into the reality of pushing wheelchairs, cleaning wounds, and carrying grief long before death arrives. And when that grief finally comes, you're left not only with sorrow but also with the emptiness of years that were consumed by caretaking rather than joy. This truth cuts deeply. Remarriage at 70 is not just about romance. It is also about resilience. You must be prepared that love at this age can ask more of you than you plan to give. It can demand your body, your sleep, your finances, and your peace. And yet within that demand, there can also be a strange, bittersweet beauty. The knowledge that even in decline, you stood by someone when they needed you most. But it is not easy. It is not what most expect. And for many, it becomes a nightmare they never saw coming. A reminder that at 70, marriage is not just about love, it is about the willingness to carry the heaviest burdens, often without rest. Number 4. Loss of independence and freedom. For decades, you've lived by your own rhythm. You wake when you like, eat when you want, watch your favorite shows without debate. You've organized your space, your habits, your days exactly as you prefer. By the time you reach 70, that independence feels like an earned treasure. You've raised children, worked jobs, fulfilled obligations. You deserve to live on your own terms. But remarriage changes all of that. Suddenly, your freedom is no longer just yours, it's shared. Your home becomes our home. Your decisions become our decisions. What you once did without explanation now requires compromise. Even small habits, how you cook, how you spend evenings, how you decorate, can become points of friction. The loss runs deeper when blending homes. You may have to sell the house where your memories live, or move into a space that doesn't feel like yours. Beloved pets, treasured possessions, familiar neighborhoods, all may be sacrificed for the sake of starting over. What looks simple on paper feels devastating in practice. You may find yourself standing in an unfamiliar kitchen, missing the comfort of the space you once called your own, realizing that in gaining a spouse you lost a part of yourself. And then there's the loss of decision-making freedom. Medical choices, financial moves, even daily routines now involve another person's opinion. For someone who has lived decades independently, that adjustment can feel suffocating. The golden years you dreamed of, where you finally lived without compromise, suddenly feel like another set of obligations. It doesn't mean there's no joy. It doesn't mean companionship isn't valuable. But it does mean that remarriage at 70 can sometimes feel like trading one form of loneliness for another, loneliness of self, loneliness of freedom, loneliness of the life you once controlled. The nightmare here is subtle, but powerful. Realizing too late that in choosing love, you've surrendered the independence you had fought so long to earn. It can leave you questioning whether the companionship is worth the sacrifice, whether the warmth of another body beside you can truly fill the space of a life that no longer feels like your own. Number 5. Emotional loneliness despite marriage. The cruelest nightmare of all is when remarriage brings not closeness, but a deeper sense of isolation. It is one thing to be alone in an empty house. It is another to be alone while lying next to someone. That kind of loneliness cuts sharper, because you expected relief, and instead found emptiness magnified. At 70, love carries shadows of the past. You may still long for the late spouse who once knew every detail of your soul. Their memory lingers in the corners of your heart, no matter how much you try to welcome someone new. And sometimes, even with the best intentions, the new partner cannot fill that void. They don't know the history. They don't share the inside jokes. They don't remember the struggles raising children, paying bills, building a life from nothing. The result is a quiet ache, a feeling that though you are married, you are still unseen. You smile, you share meals, you go through the motions, but inside, you feel the hollowness of a connection that doesn't fully reach the depths of your spirit. The bed may be warm, but the heart feels cold. And in the silence of night, you may find yourself staring into the dark, grieving not just the spouse you lost, but the intimacy you cannot seem to reclaim. That grief, carried silently, can become the heaviest burden of all. This is the nightmare no one warned you about. That marriage, even in old age, does not guarantee closeness. Sometimes it highlights the distance. Sometimes it sharpens the loss. And sometimes it teaches you the hardest truth of all, that love cannot be forced, no matter how deeply you crave it. Yet even here, wisdom remains. This kind of loneliness, though painful, points you back to yourself. It reminds you that peace cannot come solely from another person. It must also come from within. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of remarriage at 70. That while companionship can soothe, it is your own spirit, your own acceptance that must carry you through the final chapters with dignity and grace. Conclusion. The hidden price of late-life love. Remarrying at 70 is not a failure, nor is it a mistake. It is an act of courage, a refusal to let loneliness define the final stretch of life. And yet it comes with a price that few are willing to admit. Family conflicts, financial strain, health burdens, the loss of independence, and even the quiet ache of emotional loneliness can creep into a union that began with hope. These are the nightmares that so many seniors silently endure, carrying them behind polite smiles and brave faces. But here is the deeper truth. Even in the shadows, wisdom shines. Every challenge exposes something within us, our longing for connection, our fear of being forgotten, our desire to protect both our past and our future. These struggles are not meant to destroy us. They are meant to refine us, to remind us that love is never simple, no matter how old we are. If you are walking through these trials, know this: you are not alone. Countless men and women across America are facing the same storm, and though the nights may feel heavy, every sunrise offers a chance to choose peace, to seek balance, and to honor both your new love and the life you have already lived. The blessing of love in later years is real, but it is not free. It demands courage, honesty, and a heart willing to stand firm when the nightmares arrive. And if you carry that wisdom with you, remarriage can still be a place of grace. Not perfect, not painless, but meaningful in ways that even loss cannot erase. Because in the end, what matters most is not the battles you face, but the dignity and love you carry through them, all the way to the final chapter.